to try to make a little bit of the money back that we invested in. Again, your goal is to try to get the best price possible. So if you buy in bulk, usually you probably got it for a better deal than the lowest card listed. So you could potentially already be making a little bit more than what you paid for on the cards. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
And on today's episode, we're going to be going over our bulk investing strategy that we use, that we practice at Raw Mints, that we've been finding some pretty good success with, and we want to share that with you. But before we get into it, if you could please just, if you aren't already, be sure to follow, subscribe, anywhere you get podcasts. It really does help us get the word out. If you could rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that's super helpful as well, just so we can grow the podcast as much as possible and maybe share it with somebody that you know that might be interested in learning about sports cards. So again, thank you for listening. We really appreciate your time, so let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking, like I said, about our bulk investment strategy that we've found some pretty good success with over the past year and continue to practice it. And I think it's probably one of our most successful strategies as far as investing in the hobby, wouldn't you say?
We've had a lot of success for sure, man. I agree.
So what this strategy is, I kind of like to call it a 1-for-3 investment. That means one investment for 3 potential paydays. And kind of in a nutshell, I guess how I see it or how I practice it is, you make your initial investment in picking up a bulk amount of cards, and the 3 paydays are, the first payday is going to be almost immediately. The second payday will be 6 to maybe 8 to 10 months down the road. And then the third payday is kind of as you choose, or usually a long-term hold payday. So how this works and how we've been using it, I guess, with Raw Mints is, say that we buy on eBay. Usually that's where I pick up most of our investments, is on eBay, because there's people that have lots of cards, or maybe they have quantities of a certain player that I am looking to pick up. Other ways you can do it, obviously, is the best possible ways if you can find them in person. If you go to a card show, or maybe you have a local card shop that has the player you're looking for, and you can examine each card. Obviously, that's going to be your best bet of choosing, I guess, the best candidates for grading.
Yeah, that's always the preferred way, for sure.
So really what it comes down to is, if you want to roll the dice on eBay, which is usually what we do, because that's where you're most likely going to find a seller that's going to have quantities of a card. Obviously, you may not be able to look at every single card listed, because that would take the seller forever. Even if they had like 30 to 40 cards listed, they're probably not going to take a photo of the front and back of every card. That's just really time consuming, so we understand. So just know that if you are buying in bulk on eBay, there's a big chance that what you get is going to be, what would you say, like near mint to mint mostly?
Yeah, well, I mean, most sellers now will also note, they'll note a condition if there's an obvious flaw, which is important. It's important to be able to hopefully see those pictures front and back, but you're also relying on the seller to note. And we've had incidences where we order bulk items, especially with soccer, and, we get a bunch of damaged cards. But you got to think that these people are also probably ripping a lot of different boxes, and they're just kind of listing teams or players or whatever in bulk. So you're just taking a gamble either way.
Yeah, obviously, like we said, the best choice is obviously to see it in person, but that's not always the case, especially when it comes to soccer, because there's a lot of international sellers, and if you live in the US, it's not always the easiest to come by. Realistically, what your goal is whenever you're doing this strategy is, let's just break it down. I guess I could just explain it to you as simply as I can. So if you find a player, like I said, you're going to want to try to get the best price possible for this player. If you're buying multiples, usually if you find a card listed and it's got a quantity, maybe reach out to the seller and say, how much do you want for everything you have listed? Or how much do you want for 20 of these? Will you offer me a discount if I buy in bulk? And most of the time, sellers are pretty motivated. I know that whenever we have multiples of cards, if anybody wants to reach out to us to try to make a deal if they're picking up multiple quantities, like, yeah, by all means, I understand. That's why we have them all listed. And if it motivates you to buy, then yeah, go for it. So what you're going to want to do, so just to break it down. So say that I find a rookie card or a card of a player that I want to invest in. Say that I pick up 30 cards of this player. My goal ultimately is obviously to get 30 gem mint pristine cards, but we all know that's a huge, that's not,
of course,
that's not realistic at all. So
no.
Really what I'm planning to get is at least like 5 to 6 of those 30 cards to be grade worthy. I'm not saying they have to be pristine. I hope that they're pristine, but my goal is if I can examine them and look at them, that they're going to 9 or better. That's really my goal whenever it comes to grading. So I'm hoping to get, of those 30 cards, about 6 candidates for grading. So that leaves you with 24 cards for your kick pile. A kick pile is something that you it kind of is self-explanatory. Like,
it's not grade worthy.
Exactly. Not worth grading, in our opinion at least, after examining them. So you got the 6 cards that are ready for grading, and you've got the 24 kick pile. What I'll do is I'll just split that kick pile in half and list one half of that kick pile right away. That's that first payday. That's almost an immediate, as soon as I choose the best slab candidates, or grading candidates, sorry, that's going to be immediate. I'm going to just list those 12 cards, so that first half of the pile, of the kick pile, to try to make a little bit of the money back that we invested in. Again, your goal is to try to get the best price possible. So if you buy in bulk, usually you probably got it for a better deal than the lowest card listed. So you could potentially already be making a little bit more than what you paid for on the cards. So that's why I like to list that first half right away, because I already chose the best candidates from the pile, and like I said, they're not really grade worthy. And then the second half of the pile, I'm just going to hold. I'm going to hold long term. Maybe the player has, in the time that it takes for the card to get graded, things change, Players have good games or matches, and you might be able to sell those cards from that kick pile for maybe 2x or 3x. So your goal is really to kind of, with those raw cards, not only pay for your initial investment, which, again, like I said, you want to get the best price. So if you did, there's a huge potential that if you did your research, you chose a player that maybe has a really good performance or is on their way up, or maybe they're getting called up to the big leagues. Your goal is to just cover that initial investment.
Yeah, and to keep in mind too, this is also within the process of, after examining each, you're talking about 30 cards, you're examining each card to see which is the best candidate, because you're hoping you have 30 PSA 10s, but you're lucky if you get, let's even say 3 to 5, 5 to 8 if you're really lucky.
Exactly. And we'll talk in detail on a different podcast about our actual selection process for grading, because it is kind of detailed. I think there's a lot of people that have asked a lot of questions about, should I grade this? I know we always get asked at card shows if cards are worth grading, and we'll look at them for you. Like, we'll give you our best opinion on what we think, but again, like I said, we'll go over that in detail under future podcasts. But for this, we'll just kind of try to stick to this strategy that we have. So like I said, the first payday is going to be right away. It's going to be trying to make as much as you can back off of that initial investment. I've had instances where I've made this investment, and when I've made investments and used this strategy, I've had instances where I made my entire investment off of that first kick pile sale. Multiple times that's happened. It happened with Weston McKinney. It happened with a couple Trent Alexander-Arnold optics I picked up. It's real easy. Like, as long as you can get a really good deal on that first investment and you did your research and maybe you talked to a seller, like, it's not it's not really uncommon to make that money back on your investment. So then you're really just playing with house money. So you got your grading costs paid for, and you also have a little stash of cards that you can even just hold PC raw, you know?
Yeah, especially if you like the player. I mean, you might as well hold.
And so that's really kind of in a nutshell the strategy explained. It's really not that difficult to understand, would you say?
No, not at all. Another thing to note is we're talking about soccer. There is still a lot of room to get in on soccer for sure. I mean, would you say if you're looking to buy lots of players, I mean, you can find some stuff that's still relatively affordable.
Agreed. There's a lot of players in the soccer market that I personally don't know why they don't get the hobby love that they should, that they deserve. One example would be Robert Lewandowski, man.
Yeah, it's definitely growing, and you're going to see that continue to improve. But going back to outside of soccer, you pick three of the same card, whether it be you found a Ronald Acuna Jr., Fernando Tatis, or just think of a random rookie card that you get three of. You hold. Hopefully, one of those is grade worthy. To us, we don't hate on getting PSA nines or nines at all. I mean, nines is still a mint card.
Nothing wrong with nines, man.
Nothing wrong with nines. You're hoping for tens, but it's okay if you get a nine. If you get an eight on a modern card, it's kind of iffy, unless it's like a thick card or a jersey card or something. But you get three cards of the same player, and you're hoping one of them is 10 worthy. If you got one that you think is 10 worthy, one is 9 worthy, send those in. But regardless, say you have a 10 of one card, you think, you send it in, and the other two are near mint to mint, which is basically an 8. Flip one of those cards and try to get your money back. Hold one, because again, the way that our strategy is, like, we're not just going to pick up somebody because of the hype. We're going to pick up somebody we actually have interest in. So we're going to pick up that player. Hopefully we got a slab can, something that's grade worthy. We're going to sell one of those cards just to make some of our money back. And then maybe we just hold one. Maybe you throw it in a magnetic because it's a cool looking card and you just want it for your PC. You know, that's another way to look at it too.
And like you said, like even going back to the example I shared, say that I did get those I did a good job examining those 6 cards that I put aside for grading. If they all come back 10s, that means you can hold multiple 10s. That, I mean, our goal really with this strategy and kind of in general is if we get a PSA 10 of something, which is the highest grade you can get with PSA, and you've got multiples, I will hold one all day, long term, like very long term.
That's also the collector in you too, though, because the goal is to get 10s, flip, and you got your money back. Then there's that long-term hold, or if you just like a player. It's cool having it doesn't matter what it is, you have a PSA 10 of your favorite player or one of your favorite cards. I mean, you're going to want to hold that. And if it comes back a 7, if that's the only card you send in and that's one of your favorite cards or players, you're still going to hold that.
Yeah, because that's PC, yeah.
Yeah, different strategies as far as what you're trying to do that way. Do you sell all your PSA 10s? Us personally, like, if we get lucky, we send 10 cards in, we get all 10s. I mean, we're going to flip and make our money back. But, if we have faith in the player enough, why not hold, as many of those PSA 10s? It's really not hard to make that money back initially. And then you're just basically sitting on a bunch of PSA 10s of a guy that you like, that you think is only going to improve. It's sometimes worthwhile as well.
I think that kind of varies with sports too. I think that varies. Say that you sent in a bunch of baseball prospect cards and they all got 10s, but they haven't had an at bat in the major leagues yet. Obviously, you're still going to be, if the player's got some hype around them, you're going to be able to make some money back on those 10s. But why not wait until they get called up, or they get called up and they have a good game? Like, if you have patience, that's one thing to definitely hammer home, is patience is really key to this hobby. If you're in it for the long run, if you're not just day trading, which is part of the hobby. But the best time to sell a prospect is, what would you say, when they get called up?
Yeah, baseball is on a whole different level. An example of that is, back in the day, I mean, I'd probably say real quick here, 2012 to 2018, even maybe 2019 for Bowman. I mean, you have Bowman Draft, Bowman Chrome. These boxes, hobby boxes, were relatively affordable. I mean, you have a base box, like for Bowman Draft, you have a base box, a jumbo box, a super jumbo. Super jumbos, you get like 5 autos in it. Pretty expensive box. But compared to now, it's just, as with all other boxes, hobby, or if you try to buy retail boxes in a hobby shop, you know how expensive it is now. But back then, you could buy these boxes and you would just be sitting on a bunch of prospects. And still, even to this day, I mean, players get called up or they start improving, and you see them. You go back to your 2016. 2016 is a strong draft class. I know there's a lot of favorites we have in there, Bo Bichette being one of yours, you know, and there's a bunch of dudes,
guy.
a bunch of dudes in that set. But you'll still find players pop up currently, and you go back. Like the same thing as the guy from the Cardinals. What is his name? He's in the new Topps product. I want to say it's like Dylan Carlson, maybe. But I mean, that guy's first card was in 2016, and his rookie year is now. You know, and a lot of people are betting on him, and they have been for a while. So that's something cool. Like baseball is just one of those sports that if you get into the prospect aspect of it, you're going to be sitting on these for a while, and maybe you might have a terrible draft class, but you sit on something for a while and years down the road, and this might be like 2 to 4 years even. It still happens now, even with current players that pop up. I mean, realistically, dude, I mean, there's somebody that could pop up from 2014 right now that's still fairly young. Baseball is such a young sport.
Exactly. Especially with this last year with the minor league season being canceled due to COVID. Like there's quite a few players that we've been, I think a lot of, if you're a baseball fan, you've been hoping to get called up this year, and that actually might get pushed back because they didn't really get an at bat. You know what I mean? Unless they played in their country leagues. You know, Wander Franco, Adley Rushman, Spencer Torkelson. Like we didn't really get to get an updated prospect report, really. You know, we're just kind of just waiting to see what happens. You know, it could be another year until some of those players get called up. Yeah. Even though they were kind of scheduled to enter the league this year, it's a waiting game, man. It's patience. It's patience with baseball and soccer.
Those are guys that we're hoping for this current season, upcoming season, that get some playing time and do really well for their teams. You know, but there will also be those other guys that come out of nowhere. I mean, it happens. I mean, there's just so many players in baseball. I feel like that way.
Agreed. I think if we're going to draw parallels to different sports, I want to say baseball and soccer are pretty close to, as far as the prospecting market goes. There's a lot of players that we know in soccer that we've picked up that we're just sitting on, man. We're waiting till the World Cup. We're waiting until they even make it to a European league. Like it's a waiting game, man. But if you have players that you believe in and you do your research on, then what's it going to matter how long you have to wait if you trust and believe that they're going to make it big one day, you know?
Yeah. And that brings us to, you know, buying specific players in bulk, you know, for potential grading. But I mean, realistically, I mean, it's just, you have a gut feeling on a particular player. I mean, buy them in bulk and then go through that grading process, you know, see, because especially talking about baseball, I mean, you're buying guys that may not even play for a couple seasons. You know, so why not just grade them and just wait, sit on them? I mean, it's to me, it's a definite ROI. The return on the investment is there if you have the patience.
Especially now. And compared to another thing that both you and I think champion really is picking up singles. I know it's really exciting to rip wax. It's one of my favorite things to do.
I think everybody loves ripping wax. We wish everybody could just go to Walmart right now and just pick up a wax box and just rip a $20 blaster box. It's just not that easy.
Just smell the cellophane, the plastic, man. There's nothing like it. But when it comes to hobby boxes prices right now, I mean, we've seen what happened even with NBA hoops with LaMelo Ball's prices. The first release, the first week, his base NBA hoops rookie cards were selling for like $100 and some bucks, and now they've dropped so much. Like there's a lot of hype, and there's some ways that you can kind of make investments and not see an immediate return, or who knows? I mean, LaMelo Ball might be the next LeBron, dude. You never know.
Dude, it's just gonna take time, because I mean, honestly, we haven't been invested into LaMelo Ball, but I mean, that dude has been balling out. You know, that's the truth. I mean, he has done more. I mean, he's kind of lived up to the hype, but in a sense, not really, because he has a long ways to go before reaching even where Luka and Trey are, or Zion or Ja. I mean, he's behind that, you know, let alone getting to LeBron and the greats and so on and so on. He's got a ways to go to really prove
Exactly.
himself.
And if you're riding for LaMelo, man, power to you. If I end up eating my words, then that's great. That's great for LaMelo collectors. It's great for LaMelo himself and his legacy and the Ball family. Like, I'm not a hater at all. I just am not sold on it. And if you are, then more power to you, man. Good luck. Good luck with your investment, and we really wish you the best, man.
Yeah, because are there really LaMelo Ball collectors out there that are holding long term? I mean, wouldn't you say that everybody that's even in the grading process right now, they're hoping that comes back and they're flipping that right away?
Yeah, or paying express to get it back faster.
Yeah, and if you have a number to 10 LaMelo Ball, that's definitely a flip. But those base hoops cards, you have Prism NBA, which will be coming out. I mean, it's just going back to that too. It's like, and this goes along with the the recent price increases for PSA and probably all grading companies in general. Is there's going to be so many people sending those cards in. The pop report's going to be so high on these cards. In general, the pop report's gonna be so high on these things. And are they really gonna, when that comes out, what do you think that a rookie card's a base Prism rookie card, 100, 200,
For LaMelo,
250? We're not even talking about parallels or silvers.
just
I
base
mean,
cards, yeah.
what do you see that base card coming out to? Like, as soon as it hits, what's the first one being sold at? What's your guess?
I mean, if an NBA hoops is going for 100, I don't see why it wouldn't be close to 180, 200 right in the release week at least.
I even see, because silver, you got to imagine a silver is probably going to hit 1,000.
That's
So
insane.
you put the base card behind that. I mean, are we talking like 350? I don't. We'll have to see how that actually pans out. But
I think that maybe people might be catching on and realize, like, oh, look at, like, if people are collecting recently or gotten into it and they're in this LaMelo craze, it's like, okay, we saw exactly what happened with the NBA hoops, and me, you, a lot of veteran collectors, a lot of people that have been doing this, we knew that, it's not. We were shocked that it went for $100, but we weren't shocked whenever it dropped, whenever it tanked, because it's like, yeah, it's release week, it's hype, it's a lot of hype. But who knows?
yeah, sooner or later, people will realize that trend. I mean, that's how it is with everything. And again, it really just comes down to, like, these players just have a lot to prove. They're very young. They could be 10 times better than LeBron or Jordan or Kobe. I mean, that's going to be very tough, but I mean, they're going to have to stay incredibly healthy.
Yep.
And, just keep stacking up on stats and everything. I mean, they got a long road ahead of them for sure.
Yeah, but we do, obviously, as collectors, as fans of sports, if somebody's doing good in sports, that's great, man. They work their entire life to play this sport, and if they're good and they get accolades, like, that's awesome to see a dream fulfilled. I know that we have our own personal. Everybody has their own dreams and things that they want to see happen. So definitely happy for anybody that's able to do that. And if you were a believer in these players and you're in the hobby and you believed in them when we didn't, then that's awesome. We're really happy for you. But to kind of get back to the main topic of the episode, again, we go off track a little, and I enjoy it.
It's still within the same realm.
It all ties in together. So to get back to the bulk investing strategy, what the episode is about, really, I kind of wanted to share with you and be transparent with my grading results that we recently got back from PSA, from PC Sports Cards. They're one of the big players in the game. We trust them. Our friends trust them. We've used them for a very long time.
Continue to use them for
and
sure.
we'll continue to. They're great guys, Josh guys, super dope. But just to have full transparency, like, if we're going to be talking about our investment strategies, then we kind of want to share with you the results of that and know that, you can take it for what it is. You can trust what we say, if that's what you choose to do. That you just know that we practice what we preach. So, for example, we sent out cards in June. I know it's a long time, but everybody knows if you're in the hobby, it's taking a lot longer than it used to get cards graded. But for example, I personally sent in 156 cards to PSA. These are, like I said, using the bulk investment strategy. I chose, if you could picture me choosing the slab candidates for these, I chose 156 cards that I thought were grade worthy, that I thought were going to 9 or better. So we, like I said, we got our returns back. We got our grading sub back finally over this past couple months. And of those 156 cards, I got 89 PSA 10s. So that's pretty much 58% of the cards I sent in. I got 61 PSA 9s. So that's about 39%. And I got 6 PSA 8s. So about 3% of the 156 cards.
Why are we not grading cards? Is my question.
I know, man. It's just, I don't know. It's been good. I will say that. I did get a lot of really good cards back that are for my personal collection, for my PC.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is you got to say that a huge percentage of that, I mean, being realistic, it's like you're down for 9s or even 8s on some of them because they're just PC.
Exactly. But that's the results of that strategy. I used that while I was sending those off to PSA, and I think that's pretty good gem rate. I think I'm totally fine with a 58% PSA 10s, 39% PSA 9s. Like, I'm not upset about that at all.
That's solid. Yeah, you can't complain.
But that's just a direct result of our bulk investing strategy. And again, we will for sure go into detail about how we examine cards on another podcast. I think that'd be a good topic for another episode, because we can dive into even different products, different sports, what to expect as far as centering and corners and edges and surface sensitivity. I think that we could really dive into that on another episode. But speaking of PSA, the recent PSA price increase, how do you feel about that, man?
I mean, looking at it through a business perspective, it's understandable. I mean, it's frustrating. The reason why it's frustrating is because you're already spending money and you're waiting a very long time for these cards to come back. But you also got to imagine people are sending in a lot of cards. Two ways of looking at it. You have people that are sending in high dollar cards, and they're paying like, you're paying a premium on some cards, which is understandable, but you're making an incredible amount on top of that. Especially if you have a good gem rate, even PSA 9s on older cards. I mean, you're definitely making some money back. And then you have a lot of people that are sending in, bulk submissions of cards that realistically raw are maybe $5 to $15. You have to look at it that if you have a $5 to $10 card, you send it in, you get a PSA 10. I mean, what are you making? What do you think you're making? Like 30? Would you say 30 to $50 on a PSA 10?
For what? For a $3 to $5 card?
Let's even say a $5 to $10 card.
It depends on the player, really.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say, because I feel like a lot of the players that we're sending in are people that we're invested in for whatever reason. Maybe they have a little bit of hype, or maybe we just believe in it. We've been following this player for a while, and we just believe that they're going to actually do something. It makes no sense to send in cards of guys that you don't think are going to pan out. You're not sending in a complete 1989 Topps baseball set without the Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
Maybe you are. That'd be a cool set to complete. But I mean, just an example, you're not sending in a bunch of regular common cards. You're hoping to get some sort of return on your investment.
Well, I mean, even for a direct example, in that grading sub that we just got back, I sent in some Blue Velocity and some optic Blue Velocity Kendrick Nunn's rookie cards, and some hollow Kendrick Nunn rookie cards. And at the time that I picked them up, I was getting those Blue Velocities and the purples for like $5 to $7, and those are selling for like 150, 180 at a PSA 10. And I believe in Kendrick Nunn. Not everybody does, but still, I mean, that's
the best way to follow it. I mean, you're going to pick up guys that you have a little bit of faith in, or you just like, whatever the style is. Because obviously, if you're picking up a bunch of raw Ja Morant cards, it's still probably going to be cheaper than a PSA 10 Prism Ja Morant card. But
Right.
you might be able to find these raw cards for a fraction of the price and do really well on grading them. But that's really what it comes down to, is with the price increase is people are going to be, more aware of what they're sending in, because they're going to be paying a little bit more. They're going to actually want to send something in that's going to bring them some sort of return, whether it's monetary or, just because you like the card, whatever.
And it's gonna have to be that way too. It's gonna have to be that way, especially because of the high. I have a few different takes on this, and I have a personal opinion on it. I obviously, from our aspect of sending in grades, obviously nobody wants to pay more money than they were paying for the exact same service, especially if it's not improving in time, it's not improving in how long it takes to get your cards back. As a person that sends in cards, I don't want to justify the price. But for what I think it's doing for the hobby, I think it could be a positive thing, because it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna force people to be a little bit more selective with what they send in,
Yeah.
rather than just sending in a stack of cards just because. I think people are gonna be more conscious of, oh, if it costs me $20 compared to $12 to send this in, I need to spend $8 worth of time making sure that there's no flaws with this card that I can see, or that I can see with the people are buying magnifying glasses now, if they weren't already, and
Oh
good
yeah.
lights, and like, I think it's a good thing, because whatever their reasons are, obviously it's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think that PSA cares about the collector at heart. I really do, because without the collector, they would have no business. But they also might be looking out for the hobby. I was kind of thinking, maybe not a hot take, but I was thinking that maybe that they're seeing, oh, wow, we have 20,000, 40,000 pop reports on ultra modern cards, on Zions, on Lucas, on Trays, on Jaw base cards. What can we do to sustain the hobby? Maybe I'm getting too deep on it, but maybe that means, oh, let's kind of try to motivate people to not have such a high pop report on these base cards, and make them shell out a little bit more money to maybe just correct the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like certain companies like Panini, like they have to get smart about it too. And you've seen this happen with like Optic as an example. Optic is like notoriously off-centered. It's like maybe certain cards or products are being made a little bit more difficult to grade, so that lowers the pop report. I mean, that could very well be a thing
Mm-hmm.
too.
And obviously, this might be just a conspiracy theory. It might be. I've seen people talk about it on IG. I've seen people talk it on social media about the hobby. I obviously, there's going to be people that are upset about the price increase, and we're just trying to find the silver lining in it. I know that what we're going to be doing going forward is we're going to be focusing on getting more rare stuff. Picking up more rare cards that aren't just base cards, picking up parallels, picking up numbered cards, more rare cards to send in.
Just stuff with a low pop report in
The
general.
pop report is your friend. If you go to psacard.com/pop, that's one of the tools that we use almost daily, multiple times a day. Is we're looking at pop reports constantly. If you go there, you type in even just a product or just a player name, it's real easy to use, and just look at the pop reports.
Yeah, you don't have to be, registered with PSA to be able to see a pop report. Anybody can go in, you know what I mean, and see this,
It's public
and get that
knowledge.
example for themselves. Yeah, it's definitely going to upset a lot of people, the price increase, and more people may decide to keep stuff raw. I mean, another thing I want to mention is people just prefer sometimes, especially those old school collectors, they want to have that raw card. That's especially more common in vintage, but some people have just been in the game long enough that they understand, the condition of a card. It doesn't matter what year it is. It could be vintage, it could be modern. Somebody that's been around long enough, they're going to be able to have the card raw. And if they say that they have no graded cards at a card show, they're selling all raw cards. realistically, you can ask whatever you want because you're that dealer. But if somebody is confident enough in their own grading style, I mean, what does it really matter? Because at the end of the day, we're sending off cards that we think are in good condition. And when they get to that person that's grading, for all they may have seen some flaws that we missed, it's very subjective. So everything that we look at as being in perfect condition may not be the same by the time, that person has it in their hand and they're grading the card.
I totally agree. Is there anything else that you want to add to this topic? I think that we kind of, I hope I did a good job in explaining one of our strategies that we use when it comes to investing in cards. I hope that I did a good job with that.
Yeah, and just try to be ahead. I mean, we bring up different sports. I mean, football and basketball, it's tough because those players are so hot right out of the gate. Their prices are so high. With baseball, soccer, you have a little bit more room as far as prospecting goes. You have your hyped up prospects, but you have some other guys, say, you're talking baseball, say it's the 3rd to 10th overall pick, whatever it may be. I mean, you find their cards in bulk. If you like the player, why not, take that strategy, buy the cards cheap, try to hold some, make some of your money back, grade some. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's probably the cheapest way to invest as far as grading is concerned.
It's probably I not only the cheapest way, but also the lowest risk, I think, personally.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most efficient ways. Yeah.
If you're gonna spend, if the player's PSA 10's going for $200 and they haven't really proved themselves that much, and they're not Luka, or they're players that are just getting really hyped, why not invest $200 into some raw cards and hopefully turn those cards into multiple PSA 10s?
For sure. And also another way that you'll be investing is, instead of paying $300 to $600 for a hobby box,
Exactly.
Why don't you just spend a couple hundred and pick up that player? I mean, that's even the other way of investing into graded cards is, say you have Prism comes out. I don't even want to know how much a box of that is going to be.
I don't either.
If Hoops is so high, but just in term of previous years, you could spend a big amount for a hobby box, and you're lucky if you make a fraction of that money back of what you spent on that box. Or you can just buy that hot card, whoever the best rookie of that class is, buy that card raw. I guarantee you it's still going to be cheaper than buying a hobby box.
Yeah.
Even possibly sometimes for waiting out for a graded copy of a card. You may spend a good amount for a PSA 10 of that card, but weigh out, okay, how much is a PSA 10 of the card that I'm really chasing in this set compared to how much is the actual price on the box that I'm taking a gamble of trying to pull this player that I could just spend the money outright for.
Yeah, and I think the price comparison, I don't think it's that difficult to understand. Again, we love ripping wax, we love ripping boxes, but at the end of the day, if we're in it for the player, I would much rather just spend the money on singles. If I can get multiple singles of some pretty decent copies, pretty close to mint copies, I'd much rather spend my money that way.
And most of the time, it's going to be cheaper than buying that hobby box.
Yeah, agreed, man. Agreed. So I think that kind of wraps up this episode. I think that I hope, again, like I said, I hope that I explained what our one of our investment strategies is in the best detail that I could. If you have any questions, obviously feel free to reach out to us. You can hit us up on Instagram at Raw Mints. That's one thing we also want to promote. If you have any questions, if you have any details, or if you want to just check out our page, please be sure to go to Instagram and follow us on @RawMints. We're not very active on Facebook. We really just use that to promote our card shows, our local card shows, and reach out to other collectors in the hobby. But that's Facebook. Our Facebook is Raw Mints Cards. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. We really hope that you enjoyed the episode today. Please be sure to subscribe, share, rate, review. It really does help us out a lot. And we really hope that this investment strategy hopefully helps you make some money, or helps you be able to get some high-graded copies of your favorite player, whatever it is you decide to do with that. But yeah, I think that kind of explains it all. So this is Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
Thank you for listening.